So there's finally a good reason to celebrate for Intel. We can see that the stock is up around 10% after hours due to the Q3. Most importantly, I think part of the reason why the stock is up so much in after hours is due to the couple of reasons. One of them being the reducing of the headcount by around 17,000 people. We know that the management has been talking about essentially letting people go. I think it was like 10,000, 15,000 a couple of quarters ago, and now another 10, 15,000 more. And totally, it's gonna reduce the headcount, I think, by probably well above 20,000 for this year. And another reason why I would say the stock is reacting positively is because it looks like on a technical term, their manufacturing capability looks quite solid. I believe that Intel 18A is going to be very, very competitive with TSMC at the highest level. Maybe not in terms of volume, but I definitely think that Intel 18A will definitely gain some customers. In fact, the management on this call said that they didn't mention anyone other than obviously Amazon AWS with a multi-billion US dollar contract and partnership. But they also mentioned quite like interesting terms about computing giant, which could maybe point to Nvidia. I don't know, because I know that Jensen Huang, the CEO of Nvidia, has mentioned that they are able to diversify their supply chain. And who else other than TSMC is out there? I mean, they're not going to go to Samsung for this kind of volumes and this kind of technical semiconductor chips, where I don't think Samsung has the capability at the current stage. And remember that Intel 18A will be the first node in the history of the planet with backside power delivery and gate all around, which are two kind of new innovation engineering wise that's going to help to reduce the power draw of these chips and reduce the transistor size to a certain degree. So I think Intel is definitely on the right path. It doesn't look great on the, let's say, on the financials, and it's partly due to the fact that you can see Intel Foundry business is like, look at these numbers, like 4.4 billion in revenue and 5.8 billion in operating income, in this case operating loss. So of course it's gonna be very, very capital heavy investment into this, state of the art kind of manufacturing capability for transistors, where they're competing against TSMC, which has had a lead for the past 5 to 7 years. So no one expected, anything less. But the question is the company able to survive? And I think they are able to survive to see the better of the future. If you look at the Q4 guidance, they're expecting the gross margin to go back to 40%, just below 40%. And I believe with a leaner Intel, with some contracts coming in from AWS, from potentially even Nvidia, we know that Intel is really competitive with their packaging, maybe not to the level of TSMC, but I would say they're the second best packaging company on the planet. And we know that in terms of pure transistor capability, I think I wouldn't put them ahead of TSMC right now, but I think there are signs there that maybe TSMC is a little bit too overconfident. You'll see that they increase their prices on Intel 4, 5, and 3 nanometer nodes, and even the 2 nanometer node, and they're still hugely popular. So what this means is that as TSMC keeps increasing their margins and their price to the customer, this actually opens quite a nice door for Intel to take some kind of, maybe not, obviously not as much as margin as the TSMC, but they're gonna get some fair share of their, margins. And I would say in a couple of years, we'll see Intel 18A making quite substantial money for Intel. And one of the products coming out there is actually Panther Lake, which is the successor to the mobile laptop CPU or APU to Lunar Lake, which was, I would say, quite successful. The reception that Lunar Lake got in just, let's say, last month is really, really positive from most people, especially on battery life. So I think Panther Lake being on Intel 18A is going to be even better, and it's going to really, really help Intel to get some margin as well on the design side. Remember, Intel is a manufacturing side with a foundry, and also a transistor chip design company like Nvidia and AMD, which also they don't have their own manufacturing like Intel has. So Intel is essentially TSMC and Nvidia or AMD in one single company, right? And if you look at Intel's computing group here, I think things are looking great. I expected a little bit higher revenue, but I'm very happy with the 7.3 billion. It means that they're still stabilizing, they're not losing any more market share. At least they're having the same amount, and the gross margin is the operating margin is yeah, I would say it's fairly good, and this could only get better as the volume production enters with their 18A internal node. Right now they're outsourcing that, right? So it's quite I would say it's less of a margin that they potentially can have in 2025, late 2025, and 2026 and onwards. So when you consider all of this, what is my investing idea with Intel? I think like they're aiming for $1 trillion or multiple $1 trillion market cap, currently sitting at around 100 billion, 90 billion, right? And if you believe the company is going to survive, which I do, I don't think for a moment that the American government, or for, to be honest, even every single company on this list here, other than TSMC, has in their interest to not see Intel succeeding. Because if Intel gets somewhat of a success, they're gonna put pressure on TSMC and their pricing at the very least, right? So it's really good for everyone to have at least a second player that's somewhat capable compared to TSMC. And with all those reasonings, I think they're gonna survive. I think there's points to technically that shows that Intel is actually doing the right things. The new CEO, I know there's a lot of discussions out there that they should fire him. I don't think so. I think Pat Gelsinger is really focusing on the fundamentals, which is the Intel manufacturing fabs, and it looks like it's kind of gaining traction a little bit. It's slow. It's very difficult in the stock market to point the bottom, right? Again, I've been saying this for the past year now since I changed my tune. Remember that when everyone finally started to see Intel struggling, I've been, I have not touched Intel stock for the past 6, 7 years due to the reason that AMD has just, kept beating them on every single front you could possibly imagine, on client computing, on laptops, on AI, GPUs, even NVIDIA, of course, they're on traditional, server CPUs. Everywhere you look at it, AMD has been there and, hitting Intel hard, very hard. But over the past year, I've started to see opportunity, and it's fundamentally based on the thesis that this company will not go bankrupt. And if it will not go bankrupt, if it will survive, then obviously at some point they're gonna change things around based on the technical knowledge of their manufacturing capability. Of everything points to the fact that Intel 3 was very good. It's not as good as the best TSMC node, but it's I would say up there with just below the second. Let's say the second tier TSMC nodes, not the second tier in terms of if you go to TSMC 14 nanometer or legacy nodes. I'm meaning like just below their best. TSMC 3 nanometer, obviously the best one right now, maybe N3E, N3P, or so, whatever it is. But I think Intel 3 is somewhere between TSMC 4 and 3 nanometer. So they're just behind TSMC now in terms of the peak performance. Now, volumetric wise, number of chips manufactured, of course, TSMC is a league of their own. There's no disputing that. But if Intel manages now from going from Intel 3, which is competitive, to Intel 18A, which is, maybe leading, introducing gate all around and introducing backside power delivery, I think Intel is definitely in the lead innovation wise. And to me, it looks like TSMC is starting a little bit to be too happy with their margins, and now you start to see the face of the companies kind of increasing their margins every single almost day, and it's totally visible in their market cap, and the margins increasing. But I think there's a negative side to that they're simply thinking they're unbeatable right now, and that's when they're most vulnerable, I think. But for Intel, again, I'm very happy. This is the levels that I will definitely start to add to my position. This is again not investment advice. Please make your own study about this kind of investing in this stock. So yeah, this is not investment advice, and let's see what happens here. But I'm quite confident that if you're patient, if you can wait out maybe up to even 5, 6 quarters, God knows when the bottom is in. No one knows, not even the CEO. So it's very stupid for me to pretend that I know when the bottom will be in. I just try to see, what are the possible opportunities for this stock. But I think the bottom will be somewhere between maybe, I don't know, 15 US dollar to 30 or 40. But in a future where Intel can be successful in the manufacturing side, I would definitely see them as a $1 trillion company, which is an upside of 10x or even more for Intel. So that's gonna do it for today. Please like and subscribe, and yeah, see you in the next one.